We're at number 9, which is the jail report update.
Thank you. The April 24 jail report seen an average daily population of 59.75 inmates, 21.75 of those females, 38 males. Average probation incarceration was at 18. 32.5 is our average pre-sentence incarceration, and 9.25 was our average sentence incarceration. The day the report was generated, we had 2 out on electronic monitor and we had 1 working Huber. There was 56 people. Like I said, this day this report was generated. Our current unemployment rate was at 72, and I did include at the bottom for the event for new members to see exactly where our jail population, our average daily populations have sat for the past 4 years. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or any follow-up to the jail report?
I would just like to say thank you. And I think the average daily population history is really significant when you look at it, what's been happening. And I commend you and Justice Point and everybody, but it has been working really hard to make this happen. And it's nice to see.
All right, if there's nothing else for Lieutenant Waller, we can move on to item number 10, which is the renewal of the MOU between Surrey County and LCO. It's put for discussion and possible action. So who wants to open the floor for discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, not so much for discussion, but just as an update, we had communicated with LCO a month ago or the last month or two about renewing the MOU agreement. And we, the county, received communication from the Assistant Attorney General that the Tribal Governing Board has decided not to renew the MOU between the tribe and the county. And the communication indicated that despite the tribe's monetary contributions, that there remains a disproportionate number of tribal member convictions and on-jail rosters, and that the tribe believes that CJCC Justice Point involvement does not provide meaningful assistance to tribal members. So therefore, the MOU will not be approved as attached. So we've received that last week and are just following up now to try to have a discussion with the chairman or the TGB regarding that position.
Yeah, so Tribal Governing Board took this up on Monday, and Bill can comment as well. And it was under scrutiny and discussion, so it hasn't totally been denied. They just want Justice Point to come back in and explain what they've done and what they're doing with our money. So I don't want to say that it's been denied, but they just postponed it until further discussion with Justice Point. You want to add anything, Bill?
No, Tweet, I think you got that pretty well covered. It just more of a, we would like to speak to Justice Point at some point soon here, so we can kind of go over some of these things that were discussed.
Since we've got Justice Point here, should we let them know what, a time that they can come and maybe be on the agenda for TGB or something like that?
Yeah, I've spoke with Becky, and I think you've contacted TGB for a meeting, correct? Yep. But our chairman secretary has been out on bereavement, so we probably missed a lot of appointments there and what she has to schedule. But I think if she were to contact us again, we'll get her scheduled right away.
Okay, and specifically what are we asking that Becky present or are we asking for her to come do?
I think the letter that was just read addresses a lot of our concerns, and just to address those issues that are within that letter that was sent.
I think if we're going to do that, then we should bring judges.
I think if we're going to do that, then we should bring the judges and the district attorney's office, because part of the problem is that the convictions and jail reports, so law enforcement, is not part of our contract, and that is beyond our scope of contractual obligations. So it's been stated before that that isn't what we do. So I think there's a misconception of our services.
And I think that would be great, and it would help clear some of this up. So that's just more schedules we'd have to work around though.
Well, sure. We know the TGB meets Mondays. Well, I know the TGB meets Mondays. I don't know if everybody knows that, but I know the TGB meets Mondays. Is that what we're looking to work into, trying to find a regular
Yeah.
Monday?
On a regular meeting, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I know that I'll try to make all of that work so that I can be a part of that, and Anna's here. She can make sure Judge Yackel knows also. Okay.
Madam Chair, may I just say a couple things? One thing I think it's important to keep in mind is Justice Point has done a phenomenal job of reducing our numbers, including the Native American population. And when it comes back to roles and responsibilities, I think that is a very important point to make, is exactly what they were hired to do and have they done what they were hired to do. And I think without question, they've done a great job doing just that.
Yeah, I can see why this was slated for discussion, a little bit. I mean, being in the position that I'm in, I get to see what Justice Point does all the time, but I will admit, from the tribal perspective, working with the tribe, it is kind of separated. So I think that probably they're looking for just more, to get a better understanding, probably, just based off of what the letter is that Andy read and based off of what I'm picking up through this discussion. So I can see why this should take place. And I'm on board to help all of that along.
And Andy, maybe you should be present too, because our contract is direct with
Yeah, that's, I
Sawyer County.
was gonna jump in here at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. Sheriff could, I think that's what I was just gonna bring up, and I think this is a good forum to discuss this. I mean, I think it's good that, for Justice Point to present to TGB, I think that's a big part of the MOU agreement. But, the MOU agreement isn't just Justice Point, it's them supporting the CJCC and having representation here. And if there are concerns with, the county is the one that contracts with Justice Point. We primarily give oversight of their work or their report to this council here. So if there are concerns that they have, it'd be good to know them here so that we can take them up. If we're unhappy with Justice Point, we should be discussing that here. Because the county is going to look to this group, not just on Justice Point, but the fentanyl awareness campaign and the deflection grants and all those things. So all those things fall under here and are all part of, kind of driving to the same goal of reducing jail populations, recidivism, rehabilitating our community members. So, I think the big picture is important too, that we have some understanding between the county and LCO or the TGB as to what are our goals and are we meeting them? So.
How about a board to board?
I think that'd be great. And I agree with Becky that there is a misconception on what Justice Point's scope is amongst other governing board members. There were some recent incidents at the jail that's really upset the tribal membership and the governing board. So that had a reflection on that decision too. And they don't realize that maybe Justice Point has very little to do with the jail and what
Yeah.
goes on within the jail.
Yeah, and in anticipation of having a conversation, so we've suggested either chairman to chairman to talk about how they want to approach this conversation, whether it is board to board or something. We've started to gather, like I've asked for, well, I think the same numbers were sent out from Justice Point to LCO as far as the diversion interviews and diversion requests and how many people have been put on diversion referrals and are active. And then I've asked the jail for some inmate population numbers for the last year and what are we tracking there, so that if it is a data decision, that we have data and are prepared to have that conversation.
And also just, I think that in general, even this board that I'm now the chair of, has probably some confusion about about Justice Point's positions, because I see sometimes, in the jail report, there's the Huber stuff, there's the monitoring, and I know that Justice Point is in charge of the monitoring, correct?
We are in charge of the installs.
that-
There is a Huber deputy that does the
Right.
approval process, and we are in charge of the installs and the equipment.
Right, and so that's also something that's been confused a lot by even just this board. So I think maybe this is a good discussion for us all to have. And also in preparation for maybe a board to board with the TGB so that we can make sure that we're presenting the information to the TGB that they should have.
Becky, you have the equipment. Do you monitor them or do the jail?
We monitor them and then we relay that. If someone is outside of their scope of what they're allowed to do, we relay that information to the Huber deputy. And then she will in turn, decide what she wants to do with that.
Thank you.
Well, I know there was our chief of police also has concerns, so he should be invited to that meeting as well. And I don't know what Justice Point would have with those concerns, but he should be there.
My concerns are that we have done everything within our contractual obligations and above that. And it's concerning to me when I get messages saying that we are not doing that. That's my concern.
Becky, I just want to say, I agree that you're going above and beyond your contractual obligations. You guys are doing a great job.
I appreciate that.
Well, I know one concern they had is that, and it's maybe not, it's not your fault, but not meeting with the governing board as often as.
I have tried.
contractual. I know you've tried, I know, but I know that's come up.
Okay, I've taken essentially a list of who we can coordinate all of this with, and I'll try to do as much as I can to coordinate. I can be a good contact person, Kathy.
I was just gonna say, were the concerns specific? The letter sounds very generalized. And it's hard to address a generalized letter if there's specific concerns. And I think it's really important that we know whether those concerns are related to law enforcement, to jail, or to Justice Point, what their job is doing. And unless we know specifically where those concerns are, it's hard for us as a committee, I think, to pinpoint what resources or where the problems exist. We can't just have Justice Point, if they're doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, if that's not really the concern, if it's just another area, then we have to be prepared to address that other area, and we need to know that. So I think getting all the parties involved is great. But I just hate to see this agreement go by the wayside, because this was what started this committee. It was the collaboration between the tribe and between the county. And it was one of the very few first collaborations that we had. And it's been very solid, and the committee has been very solid. And I really hate to see a divide get put into this whole picture. So anything anybody can do to salvage it, I think it would be wonderful. And I think Andy is right. We have representation, which is wonderful. I'm so glad you guys are here to tell us what the problem is. So we as a committee can address what the problem is. You can take it back to your tribal council, and we can take it back and say to the county, so these are the problems. I think we are the committee we're the in-between committee. We are the committee. We're the scouts. And whether it means having a joint meeting later on, separate meetings and coming back. But I do think that is the purpose of having this joint collaboration. So anything we can do to salvage that relationship, I think would be wonderful.
I just want to say, I agree with Kathy wholeheartedly, and especially with the collaboration. And I think I'm not hearing, I mean, we've got some tribal people here, but I'm not hearing any of the real concerns. We're just, like Kathy said, they're generalized concerns, and we need to know those concerns.
Yeah, and I also, just I also want to say, there are members of the tribal governing board obviously on this board, but that is a board made up of 7 people. Every person has their own individual vote and own individual opinion on each of these things. So they can bring back as much as they can bring back. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change anything, because they would be the minority of that. discussion, probably. So what I just want to put that out there, because while we are a group of many, they're also a group of many. We're dealing with a lot of different people who probably have their own confusions, their own questions, their own, things that potentially, and it is easy to separate some of that stuff when, we're not dealing with criminal things with the tribe, there's not criminal jurisdiction. So that the Justice Point question is probably a hard question for people who don't really understand all of what that does. So, I mean, this is the criminal, what is it actually called? Criminal Justice Coordinating Council meeting. So just that alone gives a level of separation because there's not criminal jurisdiction with the tribe. So I get it, right? There's a question, let's clear it up. Hopefully we can get this cleared up, like Kathy's saying, and we can preserve the relationship.
Judge.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna address kind of like what does this mean at the moment, like when we get that last week. So obviously you get the email, I agree with Kathy, it's kind of general. So the first questions we have is, there's more to the story, and we want to have that conversation to get into the weeds a little bit. So, because I mean, yeah, the MOU outlines that there's a $50,000 contribution from the tribe, the county puts in 50. Those are old numbers. I mean, the county's been putting in way more since the TAD grant has come into place to match those. So actually the money though, to me is secondary more so than the relationship. And, it's a little idealistic, but I still subscribe to the we're better together theory of life, that we can do that. So we want to get to the bottom of that. But as far as what we're doing here, nothing changes. We have a contract with Justice Point for the year. We have a TAD grant for the year that we need to meet those obligations. So it's essentially for us business as usual while we get to the bottom of it and try to have that conversation.
But one thing I want to say is the tribe has been looking over the past 2 years to recapture criminal jurisdiction. So we've looked into retrocession, and that is still on the table, and had some attorneys involved. And so that's something they're moving for. I think it's years in the making, but it's something the tribe wants to progress to.
So what we will do is I will try to coordinate as best as I can. Although people do answer my emails better now. But I'll do the best that I can to try to coordinate this discussion and board to board, perhaps.
I just have a question. Can you share with us who you have on the list there to come to the table?
Okay, yes. So I have this board. I have the TGB board. I have the chief of police. I have chief of police for LCO. We've got Andy. Okay, but you'd already be on this board. Okay, so essentially everybody on this board, that board, and their chief of police.
You said board to board, do you mean county board or?
This board.
Committee?
Oh, yes. SPOS committee, right? So board to committee. Right?
I'll add you, please send in communicating with. I've had just this week communications with the Assistant Attorney General that sent us the email asking to have a meeting with the TGB or the chairman, so. Just so you know that.
Okay. I was just asking the state what they thought about their involvement.
Are you able to attach the email to their minutes? We all know what it said.
The email, are we able to attach it to the minutes so that we know what was in it?
The email from, sure,
Okay.
I'll forward it out to everybody right now.
I think that it would be helpful for probably this board's understanding of the situation. This committee's understanding of the situation. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to add anything on the MOU? Ready to move on? Okay, let's move on. The next thing I have on the list is criminal justice coordinator.
Me? Okay, so numbers. Current pretrial cases, we have 132. on. We also have a new pretrial case manager who started on Monday, and my current staff is very anxious for her to get trained in. Her name is Jamie Thibodeau. Our goal is for her to take on a caseload after her first 30 days. She is in training right now, so that's our goal. She won't take on a full caseload, but she'll take on a partial caseload after 30 days. So 38 of those are court reminders only. We have 3 on our wait list. All of those are incarcerated. We have 7 intakes pending. 6 of those are incarcerated. On diversion, we have 10 active cases, 21 referrals pending, 5 cases completed, 2 terminated, 4 pending terminations. For recovery court, we have 5 active. We have 5 pending referrals and 5 pending sentencing. I'm told that we are putting referrals on hold right now until after recovery court today. Anybody have any questions about the numbers? Okay, so other updates. The Reaching Rural project, which is the project through the Bureau of Justice that nobody seems to remember signing that letter for in December, that application that we submitted, which the project started in February. I went to Washington the week of April 22nd and went through a training session. That was probably the most amazing educational training I've ever been to. I also found out that after completing this first year of project, we will be eligible to apply for a $3 million grant, which will span 3 years. And under the guidance of the federal initiative, 76% of everybody who is doing the project that I'm doing is awarded. So it's a really good opportunity for us. Not a guarantee, but it's 76%. So more to come as we progress with that. Law enforcement deflection update, and Sheriff or Lieutenant, feel free to jump in, but we met with DHS 3 weeks ago, and we are revamping our deflection plan, and we're going to meet with Douglas County soon to model our plan after theirs. Not exactly, but just to see how they've implemented theirs and try to use their planning model. Because we have a lot of opportunity with that deflection grant. And they also let us know that we are open to continue to apply for that funding. So, and it's no match. Also with the federal, same, no match. So Andy was happy about that. And that's all I have for updates. Any questions?
I don't have
you
a
wanna
question,
add?
but I just want to add, and Becky's been involved with this since Justice Point takes care of our electronic monitors. We are also in the process of changing our Huber process, converting it or diverting to all electronic monitors. When the court grants Huber privileges to a sentenced inmate, we are setting it up so they have to contact us within 21 days for us to get everything in order so that when they come to serve their time, we can set it up and get them on electronic monitoring as long as they're occupied either by being employed or volunteering for the community or have a good purpose. But we are doing everything we can to reduce our recidivism, and we believe that people who are employed or busy are less likely to come back to jail, and want to do everything we can to enhance that process.
I did send those updates to lieutenant. So as soon as we get approval, we can send that application out.
I also think that's a big part of the reduced jail population.
All right. Thank you, Becky. Thank you. Justice
Can I ask a
Point.
question?
Go ahead.
So I'm just looking at the jail report and there's 23 inmates in Huber Wing. Does that mean that basically if all of those inmates were eligible to either to be doing volunteer work or whatever, they could be on electronic monitoring versus being in the Huber Wing?
So we have two sections of the jail. One's the old jail built back in '76, I believe, and then there's the new half of the jail. The old half of the jail is just referred to as the Huber Wing. So basically, it's just their housing units on the old side of the jail. So it used to be that wing, everybody went out to work. That's no longer such. It's just more of the name of that half of the jail is also.
So that's just a name for the facility. It's not.
Correct.
actually-
Yep.
So do we actually have a Huber facility though? Or I mean, are they just part of the normal jail population that are allowed Huber privileges?
We have one that's out on exercising Huber privileges now. He kind of got grandfathered in. He doesn't live anywhere around here or have any family. So we have one individual that's exercising, going out to work, but that's all we have for a working Huber.
So what would be the criteria then? So anybody who actually is incarcerated can meet certain criteria for Huber privileges, correct?
They would have to be sentenced.
Right, it's a part of the sentencing portion. So if right, it has to be ordered by the judge that they be allowed to have Huber privileges. And typically then if it's allowed by the court, then they can assess whether or not that person should. My understanding is that if you are in Huber, you're on the monitor.
Providing you're employed or active in the community
Right.
or fulfilling other purposes there that meets the criteria.
Okay.
Yep.
And so it sounds like revising the Huber, the language within that is going to be critical in terms of
Yes.
getting more sentencing
Right.
that allows for Huber privileges. 'Cause
And
it could be-
another huge part of that is that Huber traditionally would be you leave, you come back.
Right.
That leaves open the possibility that someone's trying to bring something else into the jail. That is gonna cut down on a lot of that. There's a lot of administrative stuff that goes into all of that. This would also cut a lot of the administrative work. And I know that one of the court security officers is the Huber officer. So she's the one who kind of assesses the criteria. Once they've been given that possibility of Huber, then they go through that person's supposed to reach out, get all of the information, their employment, all of that to them. They assess whether or not that person should be put on the monitor. I think there's a requirement for a certain time frame also, like they can't be sentenced to any shorter period of time than certain number of weeks.
That's one of the things that we were changing, so that will be going away.
Okay. Yeah, so it really is it's a good idea. And are we limited on monitors or how we have unlimited? Okay.
As long as we have ample notice, but that's something that we've worked out between us and the jail.
Okay, so number should not ever be a factor. Okay,
So this
Right.
should be really good because no longer, it doesn't have to be employment and it doesn't have to be tied to length of sentence. It could be, I'm going to be watching my children. I'm going to be volunteering with my community X number, right? Exactly. So we're opening up the area significantly to keep people in the community and involved in the community versus having them sit in jail. So it sounds like a great step forward. Thank you for the clarification. That helps a lot.
Judge?
I just wanna say one thing, as far as like the data requirement that you guys are looking at, like removing, I think that would be huge, because I think a big misconception that I get is from people that call, is the judge can say that Huber is approved, but then they'll say, well, why can't I do it then? Well, you don't meet the data requirement that is in place currently with the jail, so I think it's important that when you see people that are eligible for Huber, it's not a default that they're absolutely gonna get it. And by those days being changed, that would change that question that comes up a lot. from people. So I think just like overall when you hear like well, I was approved for Huber. Well, then they said, well, I can't do it. Well, it's because they're not meeting that requirement. So I think that's huge. It would be that, because that's the call that I get all the time. Is people are like, well, they said I could do it on Hoover. But that number, that I think 14 days or 10 days,
He just said that you got rid of that.
it's gone as of now.
We're waiting for the approval of the new wording.
Yeah, when that wording comes through, I think it'll be huge because that really limits people from being able to get out. It's that day, but if that goes away, I think you'll see a huge change in numbers.
So just to be clear, it is statute that they have to have the 48 hours. However, if they have that time served, that way that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that'll be.
I think that's good too. I think that the defense bar probably appreciates that change as well. It leaves them a lot more options.
Last week when we met, he said that we would meet with local defense attorneys, especially ones that commonly practice
Yeah.
with us, so that they're all aware of the changes.
Great.
We're gonna push that out to the defense
Great.
bar, put it on our website and market it so that it can be utilized.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Thank you all for looking into all of that.
Quick question for, do we have any currently, do we have any, Huber eligible in the jail that are not on monitor?
I believe so, yep.
Then why wouldn't they be on monitor? Is it classification?
They're either unemployed, not doing any community service work. I'd have to look at the stats, but I believe there probably are a couple few, so.
No, I
Some of the inmates would rather be in jail than to do the alternative.
understand that one too. And I was just kind of, as far as when someone says, well, community service, do you guys check up on that to see if they actually have community service that they're doing? And watching my children, same thing.
And also usually the defense attorney brings those kinds of things up when they're asking for Huber anyway. So we kind of have an idea going into it, what they're going to be asking the jail to do. And if I think that it's not going to be something that's going to work out, I'm going to be like, I don't know about Huber for you. But, it's usually a pretty easy thing. If you're employed full-time, it's kind of like, okay, Huber. Yeah, it's usually not complicated. Yeah. But it is a lot of paperwork and it is a lot of administrative stuff. And so I think that was kind of the reason for the amount of days limit before. But now, with having time to work all of that out, it should be a lot easier and a lot better, I think, for everybody. Okay, any other questions on any of that? Okay, I don't hear any. So we're gonna move on. The next thing is the legal aid position update. And I will admit that I have not followed up whatsoever on that because I've been completely swamped over the last month. But if anybody else has any updates to share, please feel free. Okay, all right, just on me, cool. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll move on then. And I will still keep on top of that. It's just, for some reason, this has been the busiest month
Can I
or
ask you a
two.
question? So was
Oh.
that just to get together a description, basically?
I
or
think
was it-
we're,
was
I
it-
think we're trying to see if it is something that can be possible. And I reached out to my contacts at Marquette, which I think I talked about it the last time that we were here. And they said it's something that they can absolutely do.
Okay.
It's just, we have to decide if it's really workable. We would need a supervising attorney. We would need a lot of things
Okay.
that maybe we don't want to put all of that effort
Okay,
into.
yeah, I knew you
Yeah.
were gonna look into it, and I just didn't know if
Yeah.
you needed some help with actually just drafting some language or something, because I would be willing to do that, obviously, but.
Yeah, I don't think we're
It's-
quite there yet.
Okay.
Thank you, though. I
That's-
appreciate that.
Anything to help with,
Yeah,
take some of the.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, we can move on to item 13, Health and Human Services Report.
Okay. Lynn has it up on the screen from what was given to us from Joyce. And first off, I just want to say that she is at the Opioid Summit. It's a 3-day summit that actually is done virtually. I've gone a couple of years. It's an excellent summit. That's where we received a lot of the information and training to help us know what would be best processes for moving forward with fentanyl awareness and spending opioid funds. We actually have six colleagues from HHS attending that. So we'll get together afterwards, find some best practices. I was already sent some things from them that they were excited about. So I wish I could still attend, but I got plenty of people on our team attending. From the campaign in May, or actually in April, we had the Seven Winds Casino location where we did the presentation. 171 were there, and Mellon School invited us in, and 150 attended that. So total people who have been trained to date is 3,500, around 3,500. Narcan training is still occurring, and there were 321 in April in person, 6 online. So that's still going really well. We've received plenty of Narcan for distribution, so we should be able to continue to work on that. And one of the things that we should probably be connecting into too is looking at how much training is going on. Beziki is also doing that, and just thinking about the shared information moving forward. I know that they're the other facility in the area that has the Narcan Direct. So we also, I believe, got approved for, did we get approved for law enforcement for that as well? Do you recall? I know we applied for getting Narcan Direct for law enforcement so that we wouldn't have to use some of our Narcan that we want to put out to the community for law enforcement. And I think we got it, but I will have to verify that next month. The other thing that's going to be happening is the billboards are going to be changing up. Excuse me. We're moving away from true fentanyl awareness and want to move into those next steps of what people can do and how we can work with people who may have addiction issues right now, and offer up resources. And the billboards are our current recovery coaches throughout Sawyer County. It's not all of them, but it's a number of them. These are all people that work with our community. So that is what that billboard is. We'll also get the yard signs as well for this, and hopefully we get some more outreach coming. I think there's maybe 3 new coaches, I think, that we talked about at Beziki, and we have Kenneth at the health department, and I know he works really close with the jail population, and we're very excited about that. So moving forward in that way. And then the last piece is what we talked about last month already with the Community Speaks presentation at Seven Winds, just giving some of the stats from that meeting. Any questions on this piece? I have one more verbal report to give. Isn't it great? Oh, yes. Yes, so we worked, yeah.
So I love the stuff that you're showing. I just wanted to mention that I'm working on something that on our end with this company that has an amazing campaign for opioid and fentanyl awareness. It's really incredible. It's at the beginning stages, but I'd like to be able to share it with you as this happens. Okay.
Yeah, because we should really be connecting at the same time, because we don't want to duplicate. The big thing is, for me, I don't want to duplicate funds that are already being spent and used in a way that we could be diverting funding into another area.
Right, and that's why I wanted to mention it. And when I do talk to you about it a little bit, I think you'll be excited.
Okay, awesome. That's wonderful.
I guess I got one more to
Oh,
it. Thank you,
sorry.
Bill, for adding that. Julia, the tribe has a lot of opioid money available too, and I don't think we've budgeted that yet, Bill, but we had talked about collaborating with the county on something in a joint effort.
Right, and in fact, that's the whole reason why I did bring up what I did, is because this is what I'm really want to focus our efforts on, because this is really comprehensive, this guy that I'm working with, and I can send you the scope of work. It's pretty impressive.
Great. Yeah, maybe we'll set up a meeting with you and me and Joyce.
Absolutely.
And then that way, because she's really kind of managing that budget and keeping track of where we're at and working with Finden Marketing on these. Interestingly enough, though, that picture, not everybody was taken at the exact same time. We had to use Finden Marketing because we couldn't get enough people in the room at the same time. But I think they did a good job making it look like we were all together. They all knew that they were going to be on the billboard, but we had to make it work. So wonderful things you can do. The other, did anybody have anything else on that? Okay, that's really great news, Bill. Youth Justice Report, I will get this actually sent in like we do the jail report every month. I forgot to send that to Lynn, but in March, we had 7 referrals to Youth Justice. We have, for ongoing supervision, we have 6 deferred prosecution agreements and 25 adjudication court orders, 1 on JIPS. And as we are looking at our current, what is happening right now is we have a number of people that are, a number of youth that are out of home placement. So 8 are on out of home placement at this time. That's a high number for us. It's very unusual for us. It just happens to be, we are getting a lot of referrals. And again, as I've talked about, the high risk referrals too. We currently have had 12 referrals year to date. And we have 29 on the caseload right now. The other thing I wanted to mention is we had a great training day. I think it was just last Wednesday. So the courts, YJ and CPS all met together and had the state come in and do training for all of us. So I know that I gained a lot of information out there. Lots of good questions were asked. And I think we have great next steps to move forward with. So very excited about that. Teams that seem to be working together well. I know the court system as well as YJ are feeling the pressure and being swamped with everything that's occurring right now. But I think everybody's working together as best we can to move these cases forward.
I see a lot of progress. I mean, in just the year that I've been here, I've seen so much progress in that area. So I appreciate all of the hard work that you're doing. And, I myself, I'm trying to do some things too. I know that it's not, we do have a lot of these cases. We really do.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, the severity or the risk level seems to be increasing.
Mhm.
And I think that that's a statewide, countrywide type of thing.
Yeah.
Which is really concerning, I think, just overall, but we do what we can.
Mhm.
And I think you're doing a great job.
The other thing is Sarah Nzowskis, and I met with Dottie and Nicole from the tribal court area and just really looking at what we can do for prevention and things along the way. It's where we really want to focus our prevention and time right now. Many of the kids that are coming through are tribal kids, and that's concerning, and we want to make sure we're addressing that. So we just started having conversations on the work that they would like to see done, the work that we would like to do, and how can we combine resources and funding to move forward with that. So just at the very beginning stages, but definitely starting those conversations. Mr. Alvarado, did you have some? No, you're like.
Yeah, well, kind of jumping the gun here, but I wanted to tie this into 15. I think I would like to see like this be a standing agenda item like juvenile justice, because like Julie just said, I've talked to Mr. DA about the impact on their office. What's happening in HHS, we have a lot of out of county, out of home placements. We have kids in Lincoln Hills or Mendota, which is new for us. Probably not new, but it hadn't been happening in a while. So we have, I think it's good that we're addressing these youth, but it's also creating some other, it creates other downstream issues. So I think potentially there's the option for looking at diversion for youth as well. Like we don't have victim impact panels or teen courts. And then also under this category, I think we've talked about truancy, but really haven't, there's too many things going on to take it all on, but I think truancy is still another issue we need to keep our eyes on.
Yep, and that's correct. And I think that's an important thing to bring forward, because really unless we increase staff or find funding to increase staff, we are not going to be able to address kind of where we should be starting, which is with truancy or THC and things to get at the beginning of it before it gets to the place that it's at right now. So,
Yeah, and it really has, just to share, when I started, there was kind of more of a, very few people contested anything as far as truancy goes. The citations were 90% of the time defaulted. We've changed it. I have a truancy block in the mornings on Wednesdays. And I think the last one, we had every single person who was cited show up. So we're getting a huge, because they're, being able to see that I'm paying attention to it. And also I'm kind of trying to come up with a lot of different solutions rather than just a default. I think that truancy is typically a signal that something else is going on, right? I mean, there's those cases where kids are just jerks and don't want to go to school, but there's typically, something else going on. So it is a good thing to be involved at that stage. And so by having, truancy's just kind of always defaulted in the past, nobody was ever really looking into all of that. And now that we have the block, we're having people come in, parents are coming in with their children. I talk with both of them. I try to get to the bottom of the situation. And typically I'm setting it off for statuses along the way. We're checking in to see how you're doing throughout the school year. And that's also opened our eyes to what's going on in individual families and individual situations. So it is helpful. It's kind of like a triage. It really is kind of like a triage. So it's a first step. And I think I agree completely with Andy that if we can keep this up, keep the discussion up on this, we can maybe do a little better with our triage in that.
yeah, get those numbers and maybe just offline getting those
Yeah,
like issues so that maybe we can hit the prevention areas at the right spots.
right. Yeah. Okay, so I like that idea, Andy. I think, what do we need to do to be able to get that to be a regular agenda item? Is that-
You're the chair, you say so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lifeline.
You say, I want this as an agenda item, it
Yep,
happens.
and Lynn puts it
Yeah.
on, so we'll have,
Okay.
it'll be fentanyl awareness or opioid and YJ discussion under Health and Human Services.
Judge,
Makes
just a question on truancy.
Yeah.
Is our truancy ordinance where it needs to be for you to address the
Ooh.
youth? You don't have to answer that today, but that's usually where
Good
some
question.
counties start, is looking at the ordinance. and-
Good question. Let's do that.
Let's bring
Let's
that.
do that.
I have to even look up, we'll get
Okay,
it on the
we'll bring
agenda
it.
next month.
Oh, we'll have that on the agenda, yeah.
Would you like just YJ to be its own separate, and instead of under Health and Human Services, we could have it really maybe after criminal justice? Or
Okay.
something like that, where we do YJ specific truancy all, or maybe youth justice?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
We'll
we're-
have youth justice as its own agenda item. And for next month, we'll bring the ordinance and we'll bring it just kind of, maybe I can get it to send around to everybody beforehand, discuss.
Well, we'll find it.
Okay, where are we?
Can I just say in relationship to the ordinance, probably should check with the city of Hayward to see if they have a ordinance, because if the city and the
Mhm.
county don't mesh, it's gonna make things difficult
Well,
because
yeah, and things are difficult. Let me also say, there are how many different schools in this county and they're all doing something different.
Mhm.
And even within, let's say, Hayward Community School District, the primary school, the intermediate school, they are all doing something different as it relates to truancy. Yes. So I think that trying to figure out what their policies are too is maybe a good idea.
Okay.
And Officer, I never remember how to pronounce her married name. Amber Dillon. What's her married name?
El Morby.
Almorby. That's not how it's spelled, but I believe you.
Just a note to Kathy's point there too, is the city has kind of turned the truancy over to the county.
Okay.
And we've done the enforcement in all the schools, pretty much the same, or at least Winter and Hayward,
Okay.
under the county ordinance.
And,
We do,
and I
because we
believe
have
that
a
she is the
truancy
officer.
deputy.
Right.
Yes, yep,
And it's Amber,
Amber,
and she goes to both schools
Winter and Hayward.
in Hayward.
And happy to go to LCO too, but I think they pretty much requested that they take care of their own.
Okay. Is there I think there's a school resource officer there as well. Okay. Sean, that's right. Okay, cool. Well, we can have that as an agenda item for next month and we'll come back and see where we're at for that. Okay, did you have anything else, Julia?
Nope.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, and quickly as possible. Community service updates. Oh, right. Okay, so since Grant isn't here, I think we'll move on. We already talked about one future agenda item. Does anybody have any others? All right, hearing none for that. Next item, number 16, correspondence, reports from conferences and meetings. Anybody have any updates, reports to make? We did talk already about the training that was last week that everybody raved about, thought it was really worthwhile, beneficial. Okay, if there's nothing else, we can be adjourned. Do we not have a regular? Oh, what, June 12th? All right, June 12th for the next meeting. Now we're adjourned. Thank you.